Alright, hey guys. Today I want to go over last hitting. It's a basic beginner thing, but there's a little couple tricks to it. Now, most of the time it's just timing, getting the hit in at the end, and it really just takes practice in general or with a certain champion. 'Cause every champion has different attack animations. Um, so here's some last hitting, pretty basic. And some other things is you can last hit with your skills as well, which again just depends on the champion and the timing. And then last hitting under tower. If you're having some trouble last hitting, I'd suggest playing maybe a melee champion that uh, is usually a little bit easier if you're closer to the creeps. Or maybe a champion like Annie, her Q is really easy last hit because it's spammable and refunds mana. So maybe running some AD runes, give you some more AD so you can get that last hit in more effectively. A couple things you can do if you're having some trouble lasting also is what I'm doing in this Ash clip, because there's a lot of minions built up and it's kind of hard to time, is I'm walking closer to the minions, so you can do that. That puts you in kind of melee range, and the projectile doesn't go as far, and it's a little bit easier time for me. Also, if you notice, I'm clicking kind of around or nearby the minions and make my character walk up and down a little bit. I could just walk up in an S, and that'll stop my character from attacking, and then I can wait and click on the minion to get the last hit. But I'm doing this kind of to keep my hands warm, and it keeps me ready and alert about the mouse speed and stuff. And that way, when it's time to click on the minion, I'm already kind of in the motion of moving the mouse, and it just lets you click a little bit faster. CSing under tower is pretty easy. At the beginning of the game, the melee minions will need to take 2 tower shots before you want to attack them, and then they'll be at the perfect health for you to get the last hit. The back minions generally will need 2 auto attacks, so you'll have to make sure you get 2 in before the tower hits it. But sometimes if you have enough AD and you have a longsword or something, then it'll only take 1. If you're in game and you're under tower and you mistime it and you miss the first minion, that's fine. Just make sure you're paying attention so the next minion you can do appropriately, whether you need just the 1 or the 2 autos. And of course, there's probably going to be some minion aggro at the same time, and just practicing it will get you there. There's just kind of to get you started at a general basis. And then other than auto attacking, it's very efficient to CS with your skills. A lot of times you can auto attack or use a skill to set up a minion for a last hit or secure the last hit, as I do several times here. And again, that's just knowing your champion and playing a little bit more practicing. Just keep it in mind that you can do that. And it's okay if you try it and you don't get the minion, as long as you learn from it is the whole goal when you're starting out. Last hitting's the easy part, but then there's also the person that you will be laning against, which makes things a little bit harder. There's what's called trading in League of Legends, which I'm sure many of you know. That's basically when you attack them and they attack you and you trade damage. Now, I can't tell you when's a good time to trade, when's not a good time to trade unless I know the exact matchup, and there's so many variables that go into that. I'm going to avoid that right now. This is just for a beginner guide. But what is good to do, pretty much always, if there's a last hit and you have a spell, so Maokai Q, it's a kind of projectile that goes through people, ZQ, lots of things, Tryndamere spin, Darius is a spin. If you can use that skill to hit your opponent and get the last hit, and then get an auto on the opponent as well, while they only get an auto on you, or even if they get an auto and a skill on you, they're not getting the last hit also. That's what you want to try to do in trades. You want to try to use a skill to get the last hit and hit your opponent, as well as getting the auto off on your opponent. It's a great way to trade damage, and it's applicable for any time. Anytime you're trying to trade, it works. 2 other tips that coincide with last hitting in the lane phase. If you also have skill shots, the best time to use them and to hit them is when your opponent's going for a last hit. Because they have to take that time out to get the attack animation, and during that time, you can time your skill shot more effectively, and it's much harder for them to dodge. And usually, if they do dodge it, they have to give up the minion. So it's kind of a win-win either way for you. As soon as you see them going for the last hit, as I'm doing here as Edwards LeBlanc, you shoot out your skill, and you hit them and you damage them. And that's just a great way to do things. The other way is if your melee range or whatever doesn't matter. It's kind of harder if you're a melee versus range. But if you're range versus melee or melee, or even range is pretty easy. If you don't have a minion that's close to dead right now and they're going in for a last hit, just get an auto off on them. Then they can either choose to auto you as well, or they can choose to get the minion. So either way, you trade autos, or you get a free auto and they get their minion. It's just a win-win situation for you. You're up no matter what. All right, the last two tips I want to point out in this video is brush control in lane for the top and bottom, as well as kind of a general rule for when it's good to all in. Now, again, with all in, like with trades, it is matchup dependent so often, but generally in the first 4 or 5 levels, if you can all in and you guys are at even health when you're a higher level than them, you're going to win. You know, bar something happening, getting ganked, you misplay it. It's a pretty safe time to go all in. And it's generally a really good idea. I mean, 99.9% of the time, if you hit level 2 first, go all in. If they're close enough, forget the 2, 3 minions and just put the pain on them right then and there. Because you will win that trade pretty much every time. Alright, so last thing here is brush control. Basically, when you attack the minions, they aggro you, but if you juke into the brush and they can't see you, they'll drop aggro, so you don't have to take as much damage from them in a trade. As well as your enemy can't see you when you're in the brush, so if they walk in first, you'll get an auto and a skill off before they can even do anything. And if you get that extra, second of doing damage to them when they're not doing damage to you, that can mean everything. As well as like just juking in and out of the brush if they're a range. And your melee is really good because then they can't target you to attack you. So just it's generally good to be in the brush if you can, and there's no reason not to be. So just keep that in mind when you're playing. Just try to keep brush control. And a couple reasons not to might be like if you're against a Kennen and he has that straight line skill shot, it might be easier to hit you if you're in the brush. So something like that where it's a skill shot and it's targetable. Maybe the brush isn't good. Maybe you want to be hiding behind the minions so they can't hit you with that. Alright, that's it for this video. If anybody has any extra questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. I'll put up some of my social media or somewhere you can contact me right now. Anything matchups, last thing a certain matchup, when all in a certain matchup, just, ask and I'll be happy to help. So I hope you enjoyed.